Hidden in ancient texts kept from the masses is the truth of Christ consciousness, the power that allowed Jesus to transcend human limitations and access divine wisdom. And here's the truth they never wanted you to know: you have this power too. Miss even a second and you'll be left behind in the dark, unaware of the divine energy already inside you. From the sacred teachings of Christ consciousness to the Kundalini energy and the pineal gland activation, especially through the lens of esoteric wisdom, Gnostic texts, ancient spiritual traditions. We will learn everything together in this video. What is Christ consciousness? Christ consciousness is the ultimate state of divine union, the realization of one's true self as the embodiment of the divine source. This is not merely a theological concept, but a metaphysical and esoteric state of awareness that Jesus Christ fully realized and demonstrated during his earthly life. It transcends the boundaries of traditional religion and encompasses universal spiritual principles that can be accessed by anyone. From an esoteric perspective, Christ consciousness is the realization of the eternal I am presence within. This is the state where a person recognizes their divinity, becoming fully aware of their connection to the higher spiritual realms and embodying the qualities of compassion, unconditional love, and oneness with all creation. In essence, Christ consciousness is the realization of the divine spark within all beings, which exists eternally beyond time, space, and the material world. In ancient Gnostic teachings, Christ consciousness is often referred to as the Logos, or the divine word, the cosmic principle that brings order and wisdom to the universe. It is the divine mind that permeates all creation and through which the soul can attain gnosis, spiritual enlightenment. When one awakens to Christ consciousness, they align themselves with this universal divine principle, transcending ego and duality. The esoteric nature of Christ consciousness. According to esoteric Christianity, Christ consciousness represents the state of unity with the divine, a level of enlightenment that Jesus achieved not as an exception, but as an example for humanity to follow. The Essenes, a mystical Jewish sect from which Jesus is believed to have drawn significant spiritual knowledge, taught the path of inner purification and divine alignment, which led to the attainment of this state of being. Their practices emphasized meditation, contemplation, and connecting with the light within, a process that aligns closely with the awakening of Christ consciousness. How Christ consciousness helps with spiritual awakening. Christ consciousness is the key to spiritual awakening because it dissolves the illusion of separation. In our human experience, we often identify with the ego, a fragmented sense of self that is bound by fear, attachment, and the perception of separateness from the divine and other beings. Christ consciousness breaks through this veil of illusion by aligning the individual with the higher truth of oneness, where all beings, all creation, are expressions of the same divine source. The mechanics of spiritual awakening through Christ consciousness. In ancient Gnostic and esoteric teachings, the process of awakening is seen as the soul's journey back to the divine source, referred to as the pleroma, fullness of God, in Gnostic terms. By cultivating Christ consciousness, one begins to transcend duality, moving beyond the perception of good and evil as opposites, recognizing that all experiences are necessary for growth and enlightenment. Dissolve the ego. Christ consciousness eradicates the ego's hold over the mind, which is the source of fear, suffering, and attachment. Align with divine will. The awakened individual begins to operate not from personal desires, but from the higher will of the divine, as Jesus demonstrated. Through meditation, prayer, and contemplation, practices that Jesus himself employed, individuals begin to open the higher spiritual centers, allowing the divine light of Christ consciousness to flow through them, leading to greater compassion, clarity, and alignment with their spiritual purpose. What is Kundalini energy and how Christ consciousness helps with Kundalini awakening? Kundalini energy. In ancient yogic and mystical traditions, Kundalini is the latent divine energy coiled at the base of the spine, often symbolized as a serpent. This energy represents the life force that, when awakened, ascends through the chakras, energy centers along the spine, leading to spiritual awakening, enlightenment, and divine union. The goal of Kundalini awakening is to reach the crown chakra, where divine consciousness fully manifests, allowing the individual to experience complete unity with the divine. When Kundalini energy is awakened, it purifies the body, mind, and spirit, removing blockages that prevent the flow of divine energy. The rise of Kundalini is a process of transforming the lower states of consciousness, rooted in survival, fear, and attachment, into higher spiritual awareness. The relationship between Christ consciousness and Kundalini awakening. Christ consciousness acts as a guiding light in the Kundalini process. While Kundalini is the dormant spiritual energy, Christ consciousness is the divine intelligence that directs its ascent. By achieving Christ consciousness, Jesus and those who follow his path are able to safely and consciously awaken the Kundalini energy. Christ consciousness purifies the mind and heart, creating a fertile ground for the Kundalini to rise without the obstacles of egoic fear or attachment. As the Kundalini rises through the chakras, Christ consciousness ensures that the individual remains aligned with divine love and wisdom, allowing the process of spiritual transformation to unfold harmoniously. The energy of Christ consciousness aligns perfectly with the awakened Kundalini at the crown chakra, which corresponds to the state of enlightenment or samadhi, union with God in Hindu and yogic traditions. This union between the Kundalini and Christ consciousness leads to the full realization of the divine self. What is the pineal gland and its relationship with Christ consciousness? The pineal gland is a small, pine-cone-shaped endocrine gland located in the center of the brain, often referred to as the third eye or seat of the soul. In ancient mystical traditions, the pineal gland is considered the gateway to higher consciousness, enabling individuals to perceive spiritual realms, access divine knowledge, and connect with the higher self. Pineal gland activation and Christ consciousness. The pineal gland's activation is crucial in the attainment of Christ consciousness. When this gland is stimulated and activated, it allows the individual to transcend ordinary materialistic perceptions and access the higher spiritual dimensions. This is essential for fully embodying Christ consciousness, as the individual must move beyond the limits of the physical senses to access the deeper truths of the soul. Esoteric function of the pineal gland. In ancient Egyptian spirituality, the pineal gland was symbolized by the Eye of Horus, representing higher insight and spiritual awareness. Jesus, through his deep meditative practices, fasting and prayer, was able to fully activate his pineal gland, allowing him to receive divine visions and guidance directly from God. If you're beginning to feel the stirrings of this ancient truth within you, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and prepare yourself for the journey of a lifetime, because we're just getting started. How did Jesus learn about Christ consciousness and apply it in his journey? Jesus' understanding of Christ consciousness was not something he was born with, but rather attained through a profound spiritual journey of initiation and learning. Ancient esoteric texts and Gnostic teachings indicate that Jesus spent his early years studying in mystery schools in East. These regions were known for their ancient spiritual teachings, particularly on the nature of consciousness, the soul, and divine union. There are indications, particularly in esoteric writings and the Aquarian Gospel, that Jesus traveled to Egypt, where he studied in the Temple of Luxor and learned the ancient mystical arts, including how to awaken the pineal gland and activate divine consciousness. His time may have exposed him to yogic teachings on Kundalini energy and how to raise one's spiritual energy to achieve enlightenment. Jesus applied the teachings of Christ consciousness through his acts of unconditional love, healing, and miracles. By tapping into the universal Christ energy, he was able to perform miracles, as these acts were not born of his human self, but through his union with the divine. His teachings, particularly in the Gnostic Gospels, emphasize the inner transformation that leads to divine realization, encouraging others to follow the same path of awakening. In order to explore how Jesus activated the pineal gland through Christ consciousness, we must delve deep into ancient esoteric wisdom, mystical traditions, and the teachings attributed to Jesus. The pineal gland, often referred to as the seat of the soul by figures like René Descartes, is located in the center of the brain and is believed to be a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. Activating it allows an individual to access higher states of consciousness, including visions, spiritual insight, and a deeper connection to divine wisdom. In ancient spiritual traditions, the pineal gland is often associated with the third eye, a powerful energy center in the body that connects us to higher dimensions of reality. This gland regulates the production of melatonin, which controls sleep cycles. But in esoteric teachings, its function goes beyond the physical. It is seen as a gateway to higher consciousness, allowing access to deeper spiritual truths. In Egyptian and Vedic spiritual traditions, the pineal gland is often symbolized by the Eye of Horus and the Ajna chakra, third eye, respectively. It's believed that awakening this gland enables one to perceive beyond ordinary reality, tuning into spiritual dimensions, experiencing divine visions, and attaining a state of oneness with the universe. Jesus, like other spiritual masters, understood this and worked to activate his own pineal gland through his journey of enlightenment. Christ consciousness is a term used to describe the state of divine universal awareness that Jesus embodied. This state transcends ego, separateness, and material attachments, aligning an individual with the highest divine vibration. Christ consciousness is not just a state of mind, but a transformative energy that allows a person to access their divine nature and recognize their connection with the Source. Through Christ consciousness, Jesus could align his entire being, mind, body, and spirit with this divine energy. As a result, he was able to awaken and activate the pineal gland, enabling him to access universal knowledge, higher dimensions, and spiritual powers. The process was not a singular event, but the culmination of spiritual disciplines that Jesus practiced throughout his life. These disciplines included meditation, prayer, energy work, and a lifestyle that cultivated inner purity and alignment with the divine. Techniques Jesus used to activate the pineal gland. Although the exact practices of Jesus are not explicitly described in traditional biblical texts, we can infer from esoteric traditions and apocryphal gospels that Jesus likely employed a combination of the following techniques to activate the pineal gland through Christ consciousness. Meditation and prayer. Jesus spent long periods in meditation and prayer, often retreating to isolated areas such as the desert or mountains. This quiet time in solitude was essential for Jesus to connect with his divine essence. Meditation is one of the primary methods for stimulating the pineal gland, as it allows the practitioner to turn inward and focus on higher levels of consciousness. In the silence of deep meditation, the pineal gland is activated by focusing energy and awareness on the third eye area, located between the eyebrows. Jesus' practice of prayer was not just petitionary prayer, but a form of divine communion, where he aligned his energy with the cosmic consciousness. Through this connection, he could access states of bliss, divine love, and unity. These elevated spiritual states would trigger pineal gland activation as they allow energy to flow freely through the body, particularly in the higher chakras. Kundalini energy awakening. Although the term Kundalini is not directly associated with Jesus in traditional texts, the concept of Kundalini energy, the dormant spiritual energy residing at the base of the spine, parallels Jesus' spiritual awakening process. As Kundalini rises through the chakras, it eventually reaches the Ajna chakra, third eye, located in the same area as the pineal gland. Through the practice of Christ consciousness, Jesus likely worked with this energy, allowing it to ascend through his energetic system. As Kundalini reaches the third eye, it stimulates the pineal gland, opening the door to divine perception. When fully awakened, this energy helps a person experience unity with the divine, perceive spiritual truths, and access higher planes of consciousness. Breathing techniques are essential in many spiritual traditions to activate the pineal gland. Deep, rhythmic breathing helps bring oxygen to the brain and calms the nervous system, allowing the practitioner to enter deep, meditative states. Jesus' ability to perform miracles and transcend ordinary human limitations suggests that he mastered control over life force energy, or what is called prana in yogic teachings and spiritus in Christian mysticism. By mastering his breath and focusing on the third eye area, Jesus was able to guide energy to the pineal gland, stimulating its activation. In esoteric Christian traditions, Jesus' breathing practices were seen as a means to align himself with the Holy Spirit, a divine energy that animates all life. Jesus also underwent fasting for extended periods, such as his 40 days in the wilderness. Fasting is an ancient method for detoxifying the body and clearing the mind, which helps facilitate spiritual experiences. By fasting, Jesus would have removed the physical impurities that could block his spiritual energy flow. A clean body, combined with focused intention, allows the pineal gland to function optimally. Fasting reduces the external distractions of the material world, allowing one to turn inward and connect with their inner spiritual essence. Through fasting and purification, Jesus could have facilitated pineal gland activation, which opens the doorway to Christ consciousness. Jesus' transcendence through pineal gland, activation through his deep commitment to Christ consciousness, and the activation of the pineal gland, Jesus accessed a higher state of being, often referred to as divine illumination. In this state, he could transcend ordinary human limitations, perform miracles, and connect directly with God's consciousness. His ability to heal the sick, raise the dead, and ultimately transcend death itself can be seen as evidence of his mastery over the pineal gland and his connection to divine energy. The pineal gland, activated through Christ consciousness, allowed Jesus to perceive the universe as a unified whole and to understand the nature of life, death, and resurrection. His spiritual journey serves as a blueprint for those seeking enlightenment, showing that activating the pineal gland is a key step in accessing our own divine potential. Everything you've heard today, this ancient wisdom, it's all been leading to this moment. The power of Christ consciousness is alive within you right now, waiting for you to awaken. If you're ready to dive deeper, to unlock the divine energy within yourself, then join us on this journey. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready to uncover the greatest spiritual secrets of our time. The truth is here. The time is now.